Hi, welcome to Tinkercad. Today we're going to learn some basic features of Tinkercad and we're going to be designing a simple submarine. To do that, we're going to start by creating a new project. You can do that by dropping down the menu from your avatar, click on the avatar and you'll see something that says New Design, or you can find this blue plus Create button. Once you do that, we're going to select 3D Design and it will open up the platform for you. The first thing you should notice is at the top left corner, the design has been automatically named. Tinkercad names its designs automatically. They're usually very fun and funky. However, once you've built hundreds of things in Tinkercad, it will be very hard for you to find your project and remember what that fun, funky name was. So if you click on the name, you can simply type a new name. And today we're going to be making a submarine, so I'm going to type that. And then hit return and it will auto-save. Everything in Tinkercad is auto-saving all the time, so no need to worry about lost work. Every time you log in, whatever you've done has been captured here. In the center of the screen, you'll see your work plane, this blue grid-like area. Think of that as your tabletop. So if I were going to build something with a set of Legos, it would be on the tabletop. That work plane is my tabletop. To the left is some navigation. The most important is going to be the navigation cube. The navigation cube rotates the work plane. So if you need to check your model from any angle, even from underneath or from the flat front view, what it looks like, you can manipulate the work plane using that cube. Once you've rotated them and manipulated the work plane around a lot, you might get a little discombobulated. Go ahead and try that now. Rotate your work plane just a little bit. Once it's discombobulated and you want to go back to the original setting, all you have to do is click in this home circle navigation button and it will go right back to the starting position. We're going to be building a simple submarine using very basic shapes today. The basic shapes navigation is in the right-hand side of your screen. I also have my Tinkercad set by default to inches. That's because I'm most comfortable in my mind with what an inch looks like, what 3 inches might look like. If you want to change to millimeters, you can do that using the settings here. For now, let's just grab a simple box. Drag and drop the box somewhere near the center of your work plane. Doesn't have to be perfect, just somewhere in the middle. Once you drop the shape onto the work plane, you'll see this other box appear that allows you to change the color and some other features about the shape. Right now, you can click on color and choose any color that you like. It's important to know that this is not the color of your finished project. This is the color of the design inside Tinkercad. The color of your 3D printed project depends on the color of the filament or plastic tubing that you use inside the machine. So the settings for the machine are going to all be based on the machine and the product that you put inside the machine. What we're doing is creating a three-dimensional model that's going to tell the machine what shapes to print, but it cannot tell the machine what colors to print. And so that has to be told to the machine on the machine settings itself or in your splicing tool, which we can get to later. For now, what you need to know is that manipulating these colors does not necessarily mean that's the color you're going to be able to 3D print in. The only thing I ask when you change colors here is do not click on transparent. We want to work with a solid block today, and that's because I want to show you some other features that'll be easier to see if the shape is a solid block to start with. So choose any color that you like, and our first block is going to turn that color. The other thing you should notice when I click on the block is that these white squares appear. These white squares are showing me the edges where I can change the dimensions or the size of this block. Right now, this block is 1 inch by 1 inch. I know that because when I hover my mouse on one of the white corners, I see the measurements appear, 1 and 1. I can drag the corners of this block to make it larger. So I've dragged it to 5 inches. Or I can click in that measurement box and change the dimension, and now it is 6 inches because I typed the number 6. Similarly, I'm going to change the depth of this particular block, I want it to be exactly 1. So I'm going to go ahead and set it back to 1. The other thing you'll notice is this sort of cone-shaped icon. And when you click on the cone shape, it actually tells me 0 because that's how high my shape is off of the platform, off of the work plane. Now, when you send things to the 3D printer, it must be touching the work plane. So you have to have a 0 here. If you have a 1, which let me see if I can drag it to 1. I'll show you what happens. Then I navigate to see this sideways. Do you see my object is actually floating in midair? The 3D printer will fail here. The 3D printer cannot print things in midair. It actually prints layer by layer, starting with the first layer, and that first layer has to be touching the platform. So you need to make sure, and it happens accidentally sometimes when you're moving shapes around, but you want to make sure that this actually does say 0. That way you know, and you can double check by looking, that your shape is touching the work plane. Next, I want to add a little top piece to my submarine. So in order to do that, I am going to use some sticky paper or another work plane. So over on the right side of the navigation tool, I can click on the thing that looks like a grid, looks like a work plane, and it's going to give me a sticky paper. And I'm going to put that sticky paper work plane right on top of this box, because the next shape that I want to add to this model submarine, I want to be sticking exactly to the top of that box. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this semicircle kind of a shape, and I'm going to drop it onto the work plane. It's 1 by 1, and I want to make it a little bit bigger, I think. Maybe let's do it by typing 1.5. Okay. The other thing I want to check now is it aligned to the top? And you can see when I turn my work plane that this is not aligned properly. I need to move it over so that it is touching all edges of my shape. Now that I know that the alignment is proper, I can go to my home view. And now I want to get rid of the sticky paper because I want to work with the shape back on its base. So to do that, I'm going to grab a work plane again, and I'm going to click in my original blue square area to return the work plane. Now I want to change the front of this ship. So again, I'm going to turn, and I'm going to try to put a sticky work plane right on this side surface. So now you can see that I've added this work plane right here. That's going to be very helpful as I add this shape to the front of the submarine. Okay, now I have properly attached it. I've checked from all directions. It looks very well aligned, but that isn't exactly how I wanted the shape to be. I wanted the longer part on top. And so to do that, I'm going to be looking for these arrows. These sideways arrows are showing me how I can rotate objects. So I'm going to click down on it and drag the circle around until it says 180 degrees, which means I've flipped it completely upside down. And now it is looking more the way I expected it to look for my submarine. I'm going to go ahead and return the work plane to its original blue square and return my view to its home position. I don't really like how this is looking. I think it might need to be taller. So I'm going to go ahead and make it taller, and I think it might need to be wider. So now I think I'm getting better dimensions. Do you agree? Okay. Other things I want to add to this are some windows. So this is going to be a little bit of fun and a little tricky, but I think that you'll like it. If you see the first two shapes here in my sidebar are transparent. These are actually going to make holes. You can use any shape to make a hole, but this particular shape is already set to make a hole. So I'm going to drag this over onto the work plane, and I'm going to show you how to make a little hole side window. So I first need to rotate it because I want it to be sideways. Then this is a very large hole, and that would create too much of a hole, I think. So I think what I'd like to do is make a much smaller hole. So we're going to drag these shapes. I'm going to go ahead and put 0.25, and I'm going to make this one 0.25, and I'm going to make this one not as tall. There we go. Now I have this tube. If I turn it around, I'm going to see it's a very short tube. Actually, let's try to make a hole that goes all the way through this top piece. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on this object. Let's see. Oops, I got the wrong object. Let's grab this object and let's go ahead and make it longer. Might have made it too small. Let's make this bigger. So, oh, there it is. Okay, let's make this a long tube. I know that my ship is about a 1 inch thickness, so I'm going to go ahead and make it 2 inches so that I know it will go all the way through the ship. Okay. Remember when I said you could lift things off the work plane? We're going to go ahead and do that now because I want this tube to go through the top piece and not through the bottom piece. So I'm going to move it this way, and I'm going to move it upward until I see it is about where I want the window to be. Okay, let's go back to home. Let's make the tube a little bit bigger because I want to, right? Okay, now we've got it. So now I've got it kind of centered into where I want it to go through. Let's look at it this way, and I'm going to move it all the way through. Now, I haven't actually made the hole yet. The reason is that this object is still solid. So in order to make the hole, I need to group these objects together. So in order to group them together, I'm going to draw an imaginary box by clicking in the air and dragging this box around the submarine. Once I've selected all these objects, I'm going to click on this shape that looks like a triangle and circles connected together. That's the group button. You can also press Control G to group items. I'm going to click on the group button, and now my objects are going to group together. And you'll see when that happened, it bore the hole right through the top of my submarine. I'm going to pause here to allow you to try those things now. Add some sticky shapes and create a hole through your submarine. If you need more time, feel free to pause this video, but we're going to go ahead and move on for those who are ready. The next thing I want to show you is that you can add some text. So if you grab the text block from over here, the way to edit this text is not on the work plane itself, but over here in the box that appears. So over here, I can type SS USA, and that'll be the name of my submarine. And if you see, the letters have grown flat on the surface. I don't want that. I want to attach them to the side of the submarine. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them upright 90 degrees. They are way too big to be at the side of the submarine, so let's go ahead and shrink them down. Make them a bit smaller. Okay, I'd like to show you something else about the thickness of this design. So I'm going to make this design rather thick so that you can see something. This is a 1/2 inch thick, but our whole submarine is only 1 inch thick. I don't think I want letters sticking out quite that far. If you see it and I attach it, it's about half the thickness of my submarine, right? I don't think I want that. But what I can do is push this shape inside of the other shape until it sticks out the depth that I want it. So I want it to stick out a little, right? But not quite all the way out. I want it to be sticking out just a little. And again, I don't want it on the ground. I'm going to lift it up so it'll be on the side of my submarine. It isn't necessary to group everything together. If you group everything together, you'll see that the color changes to be one block. So if I'm still working on my project and I want to see the different components, I might leave the blocks different colors, which means not grouping them together. It is better to group them together before printing. It does simplify the print and it does help you have the objects be one object. It does not fill in gaps though, so you can group things that are not actually touching. So very important that you check your object from all angles before deciding to print. And there you have our very simple submarine. And I know that you're going to be able to make it much more elaborate, much more detail with all the different shapes and combining them and turning them in different directions. Good luck on designing the ultimate submarine.